Welcome to the Data Whisperer podcast, brought to you by Data Migration International, the podcast where you hear the latest news from the world of data and digital transformation. The Data Whisperer podcast is hosted by Bill Vall, a technology industry veteran and enterprise software professional.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us today as we continue our discussions about the intersection of technology and business. Today, our topic is all about efforts to drive digitization, not in a company, but for a whole country. Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Wall, and I'm honored to be the host of this podcast series, The Data Whisperer, brought to you by Data Migration International. I'm always fascinated about how to apply technology and services to help companies meet their IT challenges. So I'm really looking forward to today's discussion because IT isn't just about business. It's also about so much more. We think about the move to digital on so many levels. And some in our audience are CIOs who think about digital for their companies. Some listeners are data experts, and for them, digital is all about the data. Today, my guest thinks about digital for an entire country, and that country is Switzerland. Welcome to the program, Stefan Metzger, who is CEO of Digital Switzerland. He's fresh off welcoming so many business, government, and IT leaders at Davos, and we're lucky to welcome his perspective to the Data Whisperer podcast. Stefan, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. So really like it.
Look forward to this conversation. Why don't we start first with Digital Switzerland? What's that all about? What's its purpose?
So Digital Switzerland was founded back in 2015 by a group of CEOs who were basically concerned about the digital kind of the status of digitalization in the country, and especially driven by the fear that the country is about to lose ground compared to others, and also the strong belief that digitalization is the future basis for wealth, jobs, and also growth.
It's interesting to see, and always encouraging to see, CEOs be that progressive, but it feels like the people that should be worrying about the state of digital for Switzerland are more on the government side. Are you surprised that it came first from business?
Not really, because this is how Switzerland is actually architected as a country. There is a lot of power within the population and also the businesses when it comes to really the whole environment, and the fear was really driven by, the CEOs are aware that Switzerland provides a very good foundation for their future success. And so this is actually came from there. And we also saw, and this was part of the fear, that the politicians are actually lagging behind and have not yet realized how important it is to really focus on digitalization across the whole country.
So now, after a couple of years of efforts by Digital Switzerland, does it remain an independent organization? Is it quasi-government, supported by the government at all?
No, we are not getting any money from the government today. The association is fully funded by its members, about 200 members across the country, from very large corporations down to small, medium businesses, including startups. So we are fully self-funded, and that's what it is today. Hopefully, we get some money from the government in the future, but we are working on that as well. But today, this is not the case.
Okay, so it's interesting and impressive story. Let's talk a little bit about Switzerland. As an American, I look across to Europe and see Switzerland as a world center of banking. It's the host to many impressive companies. Nestle is a good example. It has a reputation for being very safe, very clean, and very well organized. But it sounds to me like this effort points to Switzerland not being at the top of its game on digital. Where does it rank from your perspective compared to other countries?
So the official rankings, there are various rankings about where a country stands in terms of digitalization. We are in the top 5. So you could argue there is no reason, and why does Digital Switzerland exist at all? Because there's nothing to worry. But the point is that if we look at one of the rankings, which is coming from the IMD Business School in Lausanne, this is the one that we found is the most detailed one. Then, yes, we are number 5, by the way, behind many of the Scandinavian countries like Denmark, Sweden. Also, US is ahead of Switzerland. But there are some criteria. They measure about 50 plus criteria about the digital state of a country. And there are some criteria that are not, when we look at the trend, they are not looking good for us. And if we go look into the future, then we are a little bit worried.
So let's dig into that a little bit. A podcast won't allow us the opportunity to look across all 50 of those components. But working in the IT industry as long as I have, I know the use of IT to solve business problems and moving digital is to some extent a mindset. It requires leaders and individual business owners and IT people to think differently and progressively about the use of technology. Is mindset one of the challenges that you face there in Switzerland?
So mindset is one of the challenges. Yes, we focus on 6 fields of activity, and one is what we call public mindset. This is exactly the point. We see many people who are dealing with digitalization day in, day out. For them, it's a no-brainer. However, when we look into the wider population, and also including some of the business leaders, there is still this view, yes, something is happening, but we don't really need to take care of that or be concerned about it. And this is where we try kind of a wake-up call to help people understand that digitalization affects all of us. It is important for all of us, and specific for the future of the country. And this is another point, really avoid that we create this society where we have the digital leaders and the digital laggards. And so inclusion is another strong focus that we have, that really don't lose some of the people.
And that isn't just a function of economics, I would guess. It's also maybe even perhaps a function of age. A certain generation didn't grow up with digital, but young people today have an expectation that everything that they can do should have a digital component. Is that true?
That's true. Yeah, we see the digital natives. For them, it's a no-brainer. For most of them, at least, but especially the elderly population is lagging behind, and for understandable reasons. But so we try also, when we focus on the population, we try to help these people to kind of understand what digitalization is, and especially that this is not a threat, and is also helping them to make their lives easier in various aspects.
So there are components to digitization that are obvious to our audience in the business sector. We know a lot about the progressive use, particularly by young people, of digital technologies and the metaverse and so forth at the consumer level. Many of the challenges are in government, right? Governments tend to lag behind digitization. One's a component of resources and bandwidth. Do you see the same thing in Switzerland?
Yeah, this is also one of the areas of concerns from a Digital Switzerland perspective. E-government, Switzerland is really lagging behind in e-government. You mentioned before, it's a very safe country, it's a well-organized country, but many of the processes and the transactions between the population and also companies and the administration are very manual. And the point is, these processes are extremely well engineered, so they work very well, and they also work efficiently. But many of them are not yet digitalized end to end, as compared to other countries like Estonia. Estonia being the number one country when it comes to government, and Switzerland has a long way to go to be at the same level.
I know, because all around the world, people have to interact with government. To a certain extent, that may be part of the challenge, right? If they don't have to do digital with government, then that's sort of holding them back from thinking about digitization elsewhere. I would imagine that's a headwind that you face often.
That's exactly true. Absolutely, yes.
So when we think about how countries compare themselves, and knowing that the United States is doing well and that you're up there at number 5, as we add more digitization and data explodes, having the right infrastructure for data, the bandwidth to handle all of that, has to be one of the challenges that I suspect Digital Switzerland looks at.
Yeah, exactly. So we take a country view when it comes to data rooms. So this is one of the big projects that we collaborate very, very closely with the federal administration as well, because this is of the country's overall interest, to have these data rooms. What is associated with it is the whole question about cybersecurity and things like that. How is data used, especially when it comes to to digital health topics as well. So this is one of the biggest focus areas of us of them all. Yes.
When the outside world looks at Switzerland, by reputation or perception, it looks at it as a major center of financial services and banking. Where do they sit in this effort, and are they a shining example of digitization for Switzerland?
Yes, they are, because the banks, they have actually, driven by competition, they had to focus on digitalization very early. And I would say that the Swiss banks are really among the leading groups when it, from an industry perspective when it comes to digitalization, because they had to. There is so fierce competition from all over, not only from financial institutions, but also from new players that come along that play in the banking or financial services field as well.
Interesting. This, of course, is the Data Whisperer podcast, so we need to talk about data a little bit. The explosion of data means the movement of it, the integration of it, the storage of it, the security of it is critically important. How much, when you talk to business leaders and government leaders, is the topic of data at the forefront?
This is on top of everybody's mind, especially CEOs. More like the question, they are aware that they create a lot of data. They are also aware that they don't make effective use of data today. And the third issue that they have in mind is always the question of and the skepticism of the population about misuse of data. So, but the data topic is probably, when we talk digitalization, the most important one of them all, not only from a company and from a company perspective, but also going across government, population, administration, companies, and so on and so forth.
When you talk to data professionals and CIOs, and they say, we know we need to make progress, what advice do you give them about how to move their digitization efforts forward?
So first focus is clearly on, and this has to do with ethics as well, to really explain their customers or their partners, what do they use the data for? Why do they collect so much data? What do they use the data for? And then immediately also show what benefit, what is in for those who provide the data. And this is, it has to turn down into value for the individuals who give the data. And this is important, while also showing, of course, the security aspect of it, that the data that is stored is really safe and cannot be misused by somebody else.
It's interesting because these are very much the topics anytime IT change is discussed. There has to be value for the project. We don't do IT just for the sake of IT. We do it to bring value. If you look back a couple of weeks ago to the CEO and leadership exchanges up in the mountains, what was on the mind, CEOs and CIOs at Davos, about digitization? What were those discussions really all about?
So number one topic was clearly the metaverse. Also because the World Economic Forum itself launched a huge metaverse initiative. We from Digital Switzerland had a session, a metaverse lunch with about 80 or so participants, all CEOs and CIOs from our members and also guests. And the metaverse topic was really the number one, kind of trying to understand what does it mean? Where is the business value come from? Even basic question, what is the definition of the metaverse?
Right.
And what do we expect in the future? Do we need to act immediately, or can we wait and see what others do, And the message was very clear. You need to start now. Although might not even be a clear definition of what the metaverse is, but you need to start experimenting it in order not to lose ground to others, because the development is so fast that you don't have the luxury of time today. Certainly
a topic that will be much the subject of this podcast and for your organization looking ahead. How will you know, Stefan, if Digital Switzerland is successful? Is it simply a matter of moving up the rankings?
I mean, this is one of them. However, there are many aspects that are not in our direct control. So we do have for each of the initiatives that we drive. And when I talk initiatives, it's not that we initiate many initiatives by ourselves, but what our model is basically is to bring together what is already here. And to kind of, to collaborate, to accelerate, and to really link all of it together to the benefit of something bigger. And we do have, for each of these initiatives, we have separate KPIs that we measure. Mm-hmm. And these are very tough KPIs. Of course, the ranking at the end of the day proves us right or wrong. But again, this is only have this ranking in mind is not good enough.
I suspect for our audience, many of whom are not in Switzerland, they may be saying, how does this benefit me? But what the work that you're doing at Digital Switzerland and the information that's available on your website are lessons learned that apply to IT organizations and data professionals everywhere, whether you're in Switzerland or not. Stefan Metzger, CEO of Digital Switzerland, thank you so much for being on our program today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me and for having me.
We look forward to hearing about your progress in the years ahead. You can engage with Stefan directly on LinkedIn, and you can learn more about his organization and the lessons that they're learning about how to go digital at digitalswitzerland.com. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Our podcast series will regularly take a look at the latest news from the world of data and digital transformation. We encourage you to join in the discussion, and we'll have details in a moment on about how to engage with us on our program as we wrap up for today. For everyone on the Data Whisperer podcast and the team at Data Migration International, I'm your host, Bill Wall. So long, and we'll talk soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to the Data Whisperer podcast, brought to you by data experts, Data Migration International. You can find out about our business and services by visiting jivs.com. That's JIVS.com. To follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn, simply search for Data Migration International. Stay tuned for further podcasts in the Data Whisperer series from Data Migration International.